Welcome to my talk. I'm so happy there's so many of you. So something first about me. I came from Prague, from Czech Republic. Has anybody been in Prague? Cool, cool. Is there the green little country? And I like to speak, I like to blog, I like to challenge what is already made as a basic. I love conversation when somebody says that it's not possible, and I try to explain him that it is possible. What is going to be this talk about, and what I really enjoyed the most last few months, is migrating legacy code. So the bigger and the older the project is, the more fun it is. You know? Do you have the same feeling when you work? Is anybody using working on legacy projects here? Cool, great, great. And is anybody enjoying? 15 people, it's okay. It's not so depressing. Well, I enjoy working on legacy codes, and I also enjoy contributing to open source. I try to do it every day. Unfortunately, one month ago, there was something happened. If you want to ask me, I can tell you later. But I'm still trying to contribute to open source, to my projects, or to Symfony, or whatever comes to mind. And today I will talk about education, about how you have to educate to keep on the same level, on level with competition, with skills, with technologies, mostly with PHP, because that's why we are here. The problem is the language or the frameworks continuously develop, and there are new features, and there are some deprecations, and you have to learn what's new in these new versions, and you want to apply it. You want to have PHP 7 because it's twice faster as PHP 5. But the problem is the language develops, and every year there is a new version. And not only PHP. It would be really great if only PHP would develop and everything would stay the same, and we would have to learn only once a year what's new. But also Symfony develops, and there are some LTS versions that have support for 3 or 4 years. And to stay in touch, you have to actually read a lot of blog posts or check news every 6 months what's new in that Symfony version. And it's not so easy as you could imagine. I mean, if you have to learn what's all new in that particular version, you have to reach a lot of lines. There are a lot of BC breaks, and there are also some not so well documented BC breaks. But this is what most people think is fine. Like, we have to learn, everything is new, and that's how we roll. But then it comes to some undocumented BC breaks when you have a message like this. Does anybody know, for example, what's the first? How would you fix the first one? No? Never heard that message? Yeah, that's the problem. These messages are not very helpful. Actually, I think this is when you try to assign a value as an array to a value that is string. So it's like string, and you have tried to make string into array, and yeah, it worked in all the PHP versions, but now it's more strict. So you try to look for a solution, and you find many answers that are very helpful because they are like specific for the use case. Usually people do this, that they copy paste their snippet, copy paste the error message, put it on Stack Overflow, and there's one very patient guy who answers them. And the problem is, if these guys are really patient, so they just work like robots. You just copy paste code that is create function, blah blah blah, and he tried to translate to something that's working. But that kind of sucks because your code is different all the time. One of the solutions to this is to hire some consultant that will help you to deal with these problems, because he already seen what happened and he knows how to fix it. But the problem is these consultants can be very expensive. Moreover, when there's a lot of projects that you use. Just to check briefly the frameworks here. How many of you do use Symfony? And Laravel? And Cake PHP? Zend? Something I missed? Yi? Yi? And Falcon, maybe? Few hands, cool, cool. Nete, do you know Nete? Cool, that's our Czech project that nobody knows. So, and the problem is we still think like this is normal, like this is okay, that we have to check every package and we have to upgrade the code. And often there's a problem that we, as developers, we know that we have to upgrade the code so we can use new features and it's fast and secure. But I guess we all know the situation when you try to explain your boss, well, we have PHP 5 and we should migrate to PHP 7. It might take 1 or 2 months. It will cost 50,000 euros. And he's like, what's the business value? Well, there is no business value, but it will be really nice code and we would really enjoy to work with it. And he's like, oh, maybe no. And yeah, and you try to explain him, oh, there's this like security support and it ends on many PHP versions and maybe our code is in like danger, you know, so they could steal our database. And he's like, well, did that happen? And we're like, well, we don't know. And he's like, well, when it happens, just tell me, but now I don't care. So, so that's also the problem, that these upgrades are expensive for business, important for developers, but the boss usually says if it's okay or not, so we tend to stay on older versions of projects. And the other problem is that this is like one of the conclusions, that code becomes legacy. This is a quote from somebody else, it's a very, very old quote. The code becomes legacy as soon as it's written. So we create something new. Now we have PHP 7.4 behind the corner and Symfony 4.3, and now it's all fresh and cool. But in 3 years, it will be another legacy project that we have to work with. And that's not only with code, but also with knowledge. What I mean by this, when we had 10 years ago, we had Zend 1 and Symfony, I think also 1. It was completely okay to use service locators and static methods and magic, and it was the best knowledge at that time. But now we try to use constructor injection and some patterns and final and so on. But in next 5 years, there will be something always new. I think this will never be slower. Today is the slowest day that stuff evolve. And another problem is the size of the project. The bigger the project is, everything is much more, takes more time. Just ask about the size of the project. Do you have projects with like 10 million lines or more? Cool, that must be fun, yeah. And we still think this is okay, that we have like to take a lot of time and focus on this, and it's expensive. But I personally don't think this is okay because I'm too lazy, and I think we should not care about upgrading at all, and we should let just machine to do it and enjoy coding. And to prove that or verify that, we try to migrate Nete, our Czech framework that nobody knows, to Symfony. That became more and more popular in our country. And this was a project of 54K lines with REST API, but there was still 150 rows, which is quite a lot. And just have a guess, how long do you think it took us in days, months, years? A year? 6 months? 10 years? 100 years, yeah. 2 weeks? It's better, yeah. A day, maybe a day, yeah. I'll tell you in a bit. Good tips. Just to show you, actually all the MVC frameworks, if you start looking into them, they are very similar to each other. So it's not that hard to switch from Laravel to Symfony or the other way around than you think. For example, the differences can be in that in some way there is an object, but in other framework it's a service. So if a response, for example, you just have to replace object with service or the other way around. A second example I have for you is the router in Nete is defined in one big file, and you have all the routes there, which is completely different from Symfony, where you like the common path is to use route annotations, So we had to actually go through all these routes and find the controllers and create route annotations. And actually we had to find a value that is inside a constant and put that value to path. So it was like a lot of small steps. But if you don't do it file by file, but pattern by pattern, it's much, much shorter. So it was our first project we migrated, so it took us a little bit longer than we expected. And in the end, it was 80 hours because we had to figure out some event loops and bugs. But the main point is that the process has been made, the migration is finished, and the rules are already created. We had to create some rule to switch controller to presenter and so on. So if we would do it again, we just use these rule sets, configure the configs, YAML or Neon, and we'll be ready. And this is all open source, so you can use it as well. So if you don't focus on refactoring as a file by file, but pattern by pattern, for example, from static to constructor injection, everything becomes much more simpler. So the bigger project is the more effective the migration would be. And I think like any framework can be migrated to any other framework in a very short period of time, if it's MVC and PHP, of course. And for that, we create 1 month challenge, and we are looking for companies that want to migrate project from one framework to another, and we try to prove them that it can be really done in 1 month. So far, like nobody believed us, but I think it's really, really possible. So at this moment, people usually ask like about some technical stuff behind Rector. And just ask how many of you have you heard about this tool? And it's not React PHP, but it's Rector, just so you know, because some people confuse it. And how many of you have you tried to use it? Cool, cool. 6 people, cool. So for the rest, this is the technical structure it runs on. It uses PHP 10. Do you use PHP 10? Cool, cool, good. So it uses static analysis from PHP 10, so it knows what type of the variable it is, if it's string, type, and it uses PHP parser to traverse the nodes and to basically just change them, that's all. And I'd like to thank these guys, because without them the Rector would not be possible. Nikita created the PHP parser many, many years ago, and Ondra Mertes is working PHP 10, and Jan Mikes is helping me with the server around Rector. So now I'll try to make a little demo. Let's see how it goes. Mirror. Can everybody see it in the back? Awesome. So, I mean, you can use Rector for framework migration, but that's not very useful for majority of you. But what could be or is useful for you, and you can start to using today, is help with code reviews. For example, in this, I've prepared 4 snippets where there's like some little optimizations that make code much more readable. So I would like just to ask, do you have idea how to simplify this method to 1 line? So ternary or null coalescing? Double question mark. Twice. Cool. And this one? This is not just the 1 line, just like if what would you find, what would you simplify there? You can you be louder? One more time?
There's a double negation.
Double negation, and how would you fix it?
Check if it matches.
I like identical. Yeah. Okay. And 2 more. How would you simplify this snippet? Now I can drink. In array. And with how many parameters? 3. Cool. And this one, this is the most difficult one. You're a very smart audience, wow. Array index? Maybe, I don't know. I just need some help with code review, so I took like snippets from my work and I just put it there and asked how to can I do it better. So array index is set. In array? So this could be iterable. Yeah. So if you make it like this, is it? Yeah. It should be like this. It should be like this. Thank you. Thank you. Maybe some type, you know. Yeah. By key. Okay. No. Can you tell me? Just return something. Uh-huh. Nice. Nice. Let's see. Thank you. Thank you. Finally, yeah. Now I'm doing this like introduction to PHP, and it's like so difficult for me. So that's you can do this manually looking at the code, but I believe nobody has so much time to invest to looking at code for 3 minutes and 4 lines. So if you have like big pull request and you don't want to say just, yeah, it's okay, no problem, you know that meme, you can use Rector to help you find these spots. Actually, Rector, it's like binary as anything else. And then you command as process and yeah, and you pass the file and use a set. And code quality is a set of rules that will try to make our code better and nicer and shorter. So if I run it, yeah, this is like the, when I run it with n, it's dry run, so when I try to run it without it, yeah, so good tip. There you could also use the identical, and you don't, there was one variable that was unused, or it's just assigned, so you don't really need that. And with the loops, I'll try the, so it's a different file, but the same set. Let's see what breaks. Yeah, so again, good job, good answers, thank you. And the problem is like, it's very easy to figure it out in this code, but when it's 1000 line, it takes a lot of code, a lot of time. Here the PHP Storm is cheating, yeah. So, actually also like many of this stuff is already implemented in PHP Storm, but the problem is you still have to do it manually, you still have to read this, you have to click on this and remove it. But if you have lots of code base and you want to make it better, it's better to just run Rector on it and it will clean anything for you. Plus you can make it part of CI, so if you are adding new features and you don't want to check them manually all the time, you can just run Rector CI on it and it will give you feedback right away. So there's one tricky part. How would you improve this? Are you sure? Now this one's interesting. Like what would be a result of what this? Any tips? It's really tricky. One more time, sorry.
Wasn't it
I don't know. Any tips? Let's try it. My favorite site. So I think it might be B, because it's the last wins. Let's try it, old versions. It's probably B. But this is like very hard to spot, and actually something like this is part of a lot of open source projects, because it's usually done like this, and you have like 50 items, then in the bottom you have the same index, and you don't know which one of them wins, and sometimes you think it's the first one, and there's a bug. Okay. So, if we want to try that code set on this, let's see. Yeah, you can see that every unused method disappeared, and this was shortened to just what it is, and there is no more code that is under this, which is, I think this is very useful for legacy code, because there are 20 developers on one project, and you just add things, remove things, and you're not really sure if it breaks something. So what would you improve further?
Right now we solve this assigned without being used. If you
Yeah.
remove that, you have for each that's not being used.
Yeah, good. Array pop?
Yeah.
Cool. I'll implement it to next version, thank you. So like this? Oh, sorry. Nice. So it should be like this? And like this? And like this? Sorry.
I saw the same thing in an earlier returns. It seems like when you can run that Rector multiple times,
Yeah.
iteratively do another run.
Yeah. But this array pop really didn't come to my mind. But thanks for the tips.
The argument might be a bad idea, depending on how it's called.
Yeah.
Because you've not got a default there.
But there might be some magic maybe here. I don't know. I didn't write that code. But thanks for feedback. But this is like one part to make our code nicer and code review more effective. But another problematic part is upgrading that old PHP code. For example, this might break and this might break. Do you have any idea how to improve this one so it cannot break? Array? Many ideas? Cool. Cast to array? Like this? Yeah, trying to get there. Yeah, that could be solution. And this one? Just don't do it? So how would you just this? Yeah. Because this will be one or string one or array of one? Are you sure?
I think so.
Yeah? Error? I think I might have it. That's this one? Yeah, there's a lot of. Just let's try to run it. What happens? To make it shorter. var dump. Okay. Okay, this is the favorite Stack Overflow answer. Yeah, question. But usually in some older versions, till PHP 7, it was 1. So if you're suddenly on PHP 7.1 and you have this error, you have no idea what it means. It should tell you like, oh, just change this to this and it will work. It will be great. So you don't have to figure this out, how to fix it. Because there's also part of stride. Yeah. Yeah, so it will change property to default array. And here you should also check for, maybe countable is not necessary here, but if you have items like this, usually, this is the most case. There are not nullable arrays in all the PHP versions. And also, if you use a newer PHP version, you can use is countable, probably no. But Rector cannot change your code to version you don't use, so I think you just configure it in parameters in Rector YAML, what PHP version do you aim for. And when you run it again, let's see if it will change something. Yeah. So if you use is countable, it's much easier with new version. And this is one of my favorites that I was showing. Create function, because it's like eval, but different. Do you have tips? How would you refactor this? Just burn it, okay. Actually, this is the fun part, that it's very simple with PHP parser, because you just say him, oh, this is not string, it's PHP code, and I want you to print it as PHP code. So the rule is quite simple to implement, and it will basically modify the code from string to anything that's inside. So you don't have to read it, you don't have to study it. But you can ask on Stack Overflow, and there are many people who would like to help you with this. I'm always trying to explain them, like, you don't have to fix the code, just use a tool that does it for you. But they always like take the code and just try to analyze it and try to write in PHP so it works, because it gives them pleasure or something. Yeah. Sorry. And this one is also nice. Does anybody know what happened here with PHP 7.3? Yeah? And there was in PHP 7.3 there's PCR2, and before it's PCR1, and there were some BC breaks that were not very known. And do you know how would you fix this?
You should escape the dash.
Yeah. So the solution, you can try to run this, I think. And if you try to run this on older version, it actually works, but on newer, yeah, and you get completion failed invalid range in characters. Who knows what it is? And it's actually caused by this dash, because in newer version it means like from this to this. In the end, or escaped. Yeah, but this is very, very hard to find. It took me like 2 hours to figure out why they don't document it. And the problem is like it can be quite easy to replace it here, but sometimes you have patterns in constants, because you want to have it named and used on more places. So you have to actually check for the argument that is here and check for the value. And that's very hard with regular expressions, but for AST it should be okay. So when you try to run it, yeah, you will see it will change the dash here and change the dash here, which is great because you just upgrade the code to PHP 7.3, you have some weird errors, you run this and you don't have to figure out what happened. One of the last examples is with PHP 7.4. Is anybody using PHP 7.4 already? Cool, cool. So if you want to use PHP 7.4 in 6 months and you want to use type properties. If you have annotations, it might be helpful. Sometimes it might be hurtful. And sometimes you don't have any annotations at all. And again, we have to set Rector level to 7.4, so it knows it can do something with 7.4 syntax. And if you try to run it, again, it's like PHP 7.4 set. It's always the same syntax. It will autocomplete the annotations as we need it, and it's, yeah, I think it's not that stupid, so it knows it's string, because you can check just default value and know. And if you want to use type declarations sooner than PHP 7.4, oh, it's also nice. Soon that there will be like, do you know short array functions? So it can also handle this, but now it would break code, so I just put it back. And if you want to use param declarations, return, I don't know, there is yeah, param and return, and you don't have very good reliable doc blocks. It's here for these two. Sorry, yeah. So it will like it helps to autocomplete the type declarations for functions, for anonymous functions, because it's string here, and also if you know that value is string is always string and surname is always string, so you can reliably complete string here. So you don't have to rely on your doc blocks to complete this. It also works like in traversation. So if you have param that is string and you have parent param that is string, it will complete up to the topest level. So pre-last example is with Twig. Is anybody using Twig? And did you already migrate it to namespace Twig? Just few people? Yeah, so this will be really useful to you, because in last year there was some change from these underscores to namespace. Sometimes it's not just replacing this sign, but some extra words. And it's really annoying if you have it like in return in here in Twig extension. So instead of again doing it manually, you can this is just some code that works. Run set Twig underscore to namespace on your Twig files. I hope it will work. And yeah, and replaces this. Actually, you can notice it's yeah, it's not just replacing underscores, but sometimes it's class to another class, so it's not so dummy. And it also works with doc blocks. So if you have doc blocks, you want to replace them as well, you can. And if you want to import it with to make it shorter, you can use coding standards. They are better for this. And last example is test for this extension, so we know it works even after migration. So maybe I'll just reset and run tests. Yeah, so we run this test. Just to prove it, I'll just try to, yeah. So basically, it's not important what it does, but the filters extension returns some filter. It checks that we get number of talks that we expect. And if you try to run the Twig set on that code, and we run tests again, it still works. So it's good. And one last thing, if you use PHPUnit and you want to upgrade PHPUnit, I don't know, 5 to 6 to 7 to 8, and there are many, in older version, there's also, again, the prefixed version, and there are also some changes in expected exception and annotations unchanged and blah, blah, blah. There are some assert count, assert methods that are removed, or assert iterable that are more specific. It's all there. So you can just run Rector set on your code with PHP 7 or 8, and we'll see that it moved the exceptions from annotation to your code. So your code still works. Let's try it. Yeah, good. the code still works, and you can use newer PHP version with no problems. And one last thing about code. If you want to know how the one very simple rule works, it's not magic. It's just like services that you register to config. Sets are basically many services, and you just extend abstract rector. That has two important methods. One of them is the node that you listen to, and method call is basically this, that you call something or something else. So every time it goes through your code, and every time it comes a method call, it will continue. And basically here it checks if the method is rename me, just rename it to new name and return node. So this is like the main idea behind this. It's very, very simple. So you can create your own rules that will do whatever you need with your legacy code. So that's for the demo. And how can I make this? Just need to switch. It's too soon. This put here. Yeah, okay. So that was for demo. This is like basic introduction how Rector works. And you can either download it and use it, but we are also planning to create some Rector CI service when you can log in with your project and check all your pull requests. So you don't have to do it by yourself. And it will suggest you the changes with that code or clean code or upgrade to newest PHP as soon as you can, or new Symfony, Laravel, etc. Okay, that's all for me. Thank you for your time. So do you have some questions? Yeah, so the question is, there are some rules for PHP versions that are specific, and you ask if there are for Symfony also specific versions. Yes.
Because you mentioned that we can also define our rules,
yeah.
specific frameworks, and probably there are already some predefined rules created by you.
Yeah. So basically, to see all the sets or rules, you just look at the, can you see it? Yeah. Rector, you say click on config, and there is level. I should rename it to sets too soon. And there you can see all the projects that are now supported. Symfony is one of the most supported because I work with it a lot. And so here you can like see upgrade sets for that specific version. You can just use it. Just to give you a brief idea, it's basically services in container. It's very simple. Sure. Yeah? Why Rector? Well, I was thinking about rectum, but that was very weird. And no. First it was called, because I got inspired, that's why this weird logo, that looks really weird. This. Yeah, this weird logo with house. I got inspired like walking around cities, because there are always some buildings that are old, some are new, but usually there's like if you want to make old building new, it takes 1 or 2 years and so many money and stuff and people and time. So I want to make this like instant upgrades for PHP. So that's why it was called first Reconstructor, but it was very long to type it into Composer, like install reconstructor/reconstructor. And it's also hard to say it, so we make it sure to Rector. And you can make all these like rect jokes, so it's, yeah. Actually, I thought that rectify means something bad. Yeah, but it means like to make it clean. So if your code is rectified, it's actually clean. If I understand English good enough, yeah. Any more questions? Okay, so thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of the conference.